Strength means carrying everything. That resilience means enduring friction without breaking. But true power isn't found in constant resistance. At Black Mental Health Matters, we are redefining the narrative. There is immense strength in softness. There is courage in choosing to heal, in setting down the heavy lifting, and in claiming your peace as a non-negotiable right. We are building the infrastructure for impact. A collective space where the diaspora can find tools, community, and the unshakable permission to slow down, process, and thrive. Your healing is not a luxury, it is the foundation. Join the movement. Let's build a softer, stronger tomorrow together.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to Black Mental Health Matters. My name is Itiyopiya Ewart, and I'm a clinical sex therapist. We are streaming live to United States of Africa on the Black Mental Health Matters YouTube channel and on LinkedIn Live. Today, we will be discussing healing from generational trauma, Black ancestral healing practices. And I'm pleased to have with us today, we'll start here at the top, Carolyn J. Murphy, Minister Lovetta Sanko Dumbuya, D. Shantis Huff, Bernadette Becci, Anastasia Sams, that's Sams, I'm sorry. Anastasia Sams, right? Did I get that right? And Dr. Marcus Robinson. Welcome, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Yay.
Rev us up.
Yes. All right. We are here to talk about Black ancestral healing practices. And so I'm just going to throw this out for the entire group. When you hear the title of today's show, what does it mean to you personally? And DeShantis, I'm going to start with you.
Definitely. So for me, it's just defined by going back to where we came from, relearning things that were taken away from us and using those practices to kind of help what's going on now in today's society.
Thank you. Anastasia, is it Anastasia or Anastasia?
Anastasia.
Okay, Anastasia, would you like to answer?
Yes, I think similarly, it is also reconnecting with ourselves, reconnecting with our intuition, reconnecting with who we were before colonization, before enslavement, and also reconnecting with nature as well.
Thank you so much for that. Yes. Minister Lovetta, what would you like to add?
I would just like to add that how we heal is depends on how we choose to, picture that from our mind. It begins from our mindsets, and compared to what we have presently, a lot of things are available for us compared to what our people used to have, back in the days. And so we could use the resources available now, but it begins from our mind.
Yes, thank you. Black ancestral healing. What does it mean to you personally, Dr. Marcus?
Well, it means the freedom to abandon all forms of Western control of what it means to be Black and well and standing on the planet. And when I free myself of that, I then have the opportunity to be on the planet and to express myself as a relations to the planet. So I get my grounding back, and out of my grounding with the earth, the land, I get the foundation for health and wellness at all levels, including mental health.
Yes, thank you. Carolyn?
Good morning. Echoing pretty much what everybody else is saying, especially Dr. Marcus, being able to abandon. I like that word, abandon the Western thinking, thinking out of the box. My healing has become utmost important to me, and as I'm on my journey, it has become even more important to bring someone alongside with me in our community.
I guess absolutely. And last but not least, Bernadette.
I would be repeating everything that everyone has said because it all resonates with me, and I definitely think in the same line as everyone else, my virtual co-panelists. But I think one thing that I would like to add to and contribute to the conversation here is um, it's really interesting when I speak as someone who was born um, in the motherland. So I was born in Africa. I was born in Cameroon, but grew up in the West here in Canada. Um, and when I speak on my journey to someone maybe who's remained on the motherland longer, or someone who identifies Black but maybe was born here in the West, our idea of what it means to stand here as a Black person, what it means, even culturally, what that means, and how we integrate culture into our way of returning to self and our way to heal. So understanding too that that can look very unique, even though we share, that color of the skin, that can look very unique depending on what cultures have been transmitted from my parents to their parents to me, and then how I'm I'm gifting that to my children. So that cultural aspect can look very different. But um, for me, community is, I think, number one. um, I don't think we can heal in silos, and we can heal individually. So that practice of Ubuntu, it is absolutely important, and that understanding that I definitely am, because all of us here are, and I can take a little bit of everything here, so I can continue on my healing journey. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you brought up how vast the practices can be, because Africa, even though we are socialized still today that Africa is a country, it's a huge, huge continent with thousands of languages, thousands of ethnicities. And so I really appreciate you bringing that home too. All right, so let's jump into the second question. When we talk about generational trauma in Black communities, what are we actually talking about? And so for these questions, I'm not going to have everybody answer because of the amount of people on the panel. And so because of that robust yes, Carolyn, I'm going to throw that question to you.
Thank you. When we hear the phrase generational trauma, many people think only about what happened to our ancestors. I believe it's bigger than that. Sometimes uh, what gets passed down isn't only what happened, it's what we learned to believe because of what happened. Um, like, for instance, fear becomes normal, silence becomes normal, survival becomes normal, emotional suppression becomes normal, unhealthy relationships become patterns, become normal, because I live those things. But as a Tennessee certified peer recovery specialist and a certified Christian life coach, I spend a lot of time helping people recognize some of those patterns, that we don't have to continue to carry them into our future, even though they shaped They shaped us, but we don't have to allow it to um, narrate our future. While we may inherit the patterns, we do not again have to pass down those patterns.
Absolutely. Dr. Marcus, just throwing the same question to you. When we talk about generational trauma in Black communities, what are we actually talking about?
So, I'm gonna stay in the American context, the U.S. context, because that's where I'm at. So I kind of locate the geography there, and I'm going to locate it in geography because geography has a direct impact on physiology and nervous systems. You know what geography, what the environmental, what the ecological, what the family base, what the individual members' capacities in the families to be functioning well, given all of that external environmental stuff. Okay, so excuse me. I'm suggesting that it is the biology that is rooted in the geography that is where the impact on the mental health and the physical health changes, and the approach to solving it needs to change based on who you are. And if I'm from a certain geography and I'm working with somebody else and they're from a different geography and that geography has shaped them differently, I need to be able to distinguish that shaping from my own shaping and make the translation such that I don't layer one more trauma on them by enforcing my worldview onto to them, and rather, the opportunity for me as a therapist is to relax my clutch on my own and enter into their model of the world and be with them and relate with them from where they are, and then in that space, now we have a basis, you and I together in your world. I can now bring something from my world into yours that allows you to begin to reorganize, reassess, rethink, decide differently, behave differently as a result of the encounter.
Mhm.
So I kind of drifted into the therapeutic part of it, but the kind of the internalizing part of it, as I look at my own situation, is that I recognize that growing up in the Jim Crow South in Florida makes a different kind of Black American than if you grew up in Beverly Hills, LA, even in the same time period, because it's just a different physiology and a different impact, and I need to be able to address that. Full stop.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Uh, Bernadette.
Absolutely. I don't know if you saw me here moving, but yes to everything that has been said by Dr. Marcus and by Carolyn. I to add to this, as someone who was adopted in this country through immigration policy, so understanding to the migration from one country to another, and as I'm getting older, I am and looking at my own patterns now, my children's patterns, my parents' patterns. I understand the weight um, that decision to leave a country to come to another had on them, and the underlining behaviors that as a child I noticed but didn't have the vocabulary and the language. I now understand a bit better how it has also shaped my world, the decisions that I make, some of the anxieties that I have that I didn't understand how to vocalize, but now understand a bit better. And I think some of them came with age and a bit of wisdom, but also a lot of them came through motherhood portals, because now I see my children and I think there's things that they don't understand why they do it, but by them being a mirror to me, I have a better understanding. And I think I am probably also a mirror to my parents that might understand also some of their patterns. So how do we break that? How do we not continue some of these things that were there for a reason when they they came into us, so just to protect, right, as a way of survival, but maybe don't no longer are serving us, and I actually are probably detrimental to the way we're, experiencing our human experience on this earth. Is, I think, by breaking the silence, by asking the hard questions, by going to your parents if they're still here, or any ancestors that are still here, going to them and having these conversations. Maybe they didn't even ask the questions themselves, and that might trigger something in them to start their own healing. One last thing, I remember going to a therapist, a holistic therapist once, and I was looking to heal an autoimmune uh, uh, a disease, I'll call it, in one of my sons, and understanding that autoimmune disease was not just, showing up on their skin. It was something more internal, and then going down to the root of all of this, bringing holistic to modern medicine. And I remember telling the person, I am looking to heal my son, and then she said to me, well, you need to start by looking at healing yourself first. And that triggered a lot of things in me, and I think that's the answer to a lot of things. We're looking to heal our children, to heal, whoever, but often it needs to start with us, so then we can pass that. Now we're breaking, and we can pass that to the next generations, and hopefully also help our previous generations to heal.
Yes. Very, very important stuff there. I love the, bringing up what is modeled to us, because even how we respond to things, we watch our parents, we watch our community, how we're supposed to respond, and then that stuff is embedded in nervous systems, which then is embedded in DNA. So very, very important information there. And so now we're just gonna move on to another question here. Many people think of trauma only as major catastrophic events, but generational trauma often shows up in everyday life. What are some ways you've seen inherited trauma manifest in Black communities? And Minister Lavetta, if we can start with you.
Oh, thank you so much. When I think of that, I just picture, a scenario when you see a young woman coming up, and, she saw, the mother being brutalized, for example, by the father at home. And you see her watching, secretly, silently going through that suffering, and she couldn't have a solution to it, and so she sucks in and grew up, and that's how she inherited. When the father says, "Oh, why are you not getting married?" He says, "I don't want to go through the same thing my mother, went through in your hands." For me, that's the best way I see how, we inherit a lot of traumas, from, within the Black community, especially, domestic violence. Women have to go through a lot of domestic violence, and these young kids in their homes, they inherit that kind of pattern. The same goes for men as well. A man sees how the mother, talks to the father, all the time, and when he grew up, he said, "I don't want to get married, women are this, women are that." So for me, that's how I see it. And it's really difficult in our society for us, to break free from that if we don't have what it takes to heal from within.
Absolutely. DeShantis, what are some ways you've seen inherited trauma manifest in Black communities?
For me, when I hear this topic, I love to bring up epigenetics or epigenetics, which is basically the reshaping of the characteristics of our DNA because of what we've gone through. So, inherently, say for instance, if we are the only Black person that is in a predominantly white area, epigenetics has us already on guard. knowing that, we can't have our head down in our phones, knowing that we need to look around and be aware of everything and everyone and what's happening around us. Um, it's a way that has unknowingly shaped our ancestors, and it currently shapes our reality that we live in with everything that's going on. Another aspect I like to bring to it as well is the feelings that we have when there are historical happenings going on. Um, Kind of like the universal feeling that everyone felt when we found out about the Nolan Wells case or the Emmett Till case. Every single generation, Black generation, has had something like that happen to us. And it reshapes us in such a powerful way, but sometimes in a negative way as well.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. Anastasia.
Yes, I think. Could you repeat the question one more
Oh,
time, actually?
yes, I'm sorry. What are some ways you've seen inherited trauma manifest in Black communities?
So my mind does go to, and right in this moment, I'm thinking from um, more of a US lens, thinking about sort of the uh, generations of breaking down the Black community uh, through so many different means. And so seeing that, I think that Minister Lavetta mentioned earlier the mindset, seeing how that plays in our minds, whether it's through imposter syndrome. When I think about imposter syndrome, I think about when we look at history, who were really the imposters. And so I think about us taking on sort of this colonized mindset of imposter syndrome, or this feeling of being small and minimizing ourselves, minimizing our feelings, minimizing our intuition, and so I think there's very much so the mindset piece, and I see often the inability to use what Dr. Marcus mentioned earlier, to abandon some of those things and to be able to separate and recognize that these things actually aren't who you are and who you were before enslavement, before colonization. And so I think that that inability to sort of separate the self from what is imposed onto us and has been for generations, while also having it be reinforced daily, whether it's through the workplace environment, media, whatever it is, are all ways that that we see it show up every day.
Absolutely. I'm over here like, I'm so thankful because I was taking notes. It is important that we recognize how we inherited the trauma and who we are actually modeling. Because
Yes.
just a quick aside, there's different modalities with psychotherapy, and some of those modalities will say there's a part of you that, because it's trying to protect itself. I was like, wait, that's not even me. How could that be me? Why would I be here trying to hurt myself? Why would I be telling myself that I'm stupid? Why would I be telling myself I'm useless? Why would I tell myself I'm worthless? That's not me.
Right.
And so, thank you for highlighting that point. That got me hyped. Thank you. Got me a little hype here. So let's just move on a little bit. Before colonization and enslavement, Black communities across the continent of Africa had rich traditions for maintaining emotional, spiritual, and communal well-being. What healing traditions do you think we were forced to forget? Or what traditions did we never actually lose? So that's, what healing traditions were we forced to forget, or what did we not actually lose? And let me see here, Dr. Marcus. You look like you really vibing now. Let's hear a little from you.
Okay, okay. Well, I didn't know what I didn't know until I bumped into it. Let me start with that to answer your question, right? And the blessing of my life was to bump into Malidoma Some and Sobonfu Some and receive their blessing and richness and insight through the Dagara tradition and the Dogon. And what that did for me was open me up to a kind of spirituality, a kind of knowing about myself, the what I am, that was larger than the creature that I am. That this Dogon insight is celestial, cosmic, as well as earthly, terrestrial. So now, as a man standing on the planet in 2026, I now connect that to the depths of what we know around quantum physics, astrophysics, quantum biology, because the root knowledge was in the Dogon and the Dagara people long before the colonizers showed up and enticed and sold some of us away. So for me, I bridged that gap between the the planting that I am in the U.S. in this period, the initiation through the Dagara tradition that takes me all the way back, all the way through to Sirius, off planet really, if you follow their tradition, okay, and then to recognize that the science now has a way of determining the veracity and actual truth of the matter of that ancient tradition that goes all the way back to the Bantu. So what am I really saying about all of that is that what they forgot to tell us was that we are far greater than anything that they did tell us by 10 to the 10th to the millionth power, and that when you get that when you get what you are as a descendant, one who holds the DNA that goes all the way back to the beginning, when you get that, and then you understand what that beginning is, and then you realize the world that you're in is much smaller than the world that you were designed for. That's what the mental anguish is all about. That's what my anger is all about. That's what my real upset is all about. Is that I'm hemmed up inside of something way too small to hold the grand nature. When you say grand rising, when I try to get up like that, this environment, doesn't allow me to stand fully erect. Kind of thing. So then I practice the work of working on myself so that I can stand fully erect, and walk in my power on the planet, shaping the world co-creatively, not just being shaped by it anymore. It's a dance now for me. It's who's more dangerous, the circumstances and conditions of my life or me? And I usually take me on that fight, and I usually help people determine to take themselves on that fight and give them the tools that help them win more battles than lose, and lose less damaged when you lose, and win with a kind of grace and humility that doesn't demand that you inflict retribution, that you pass it on, that you kind of just, some treasure is yours to hold, not to pass on. So that's where I'm at about it. Sister Itiyopiya, thank you for asking me that question.
Yes. Thank you. I the imagery of the getting out, like, like grand rising, but I'm limited. They got me in this too tight pair of shoes. That is the worst feeling, let me tell you. Or too tight jeans. But anyway, Anastasia, what you got to say? Let me read the question for you. Let me read the question. What healing traditions were we forced to forget or perhaps never truly lost?
Well, first I'll say it's hard to follow Dr. Marcus because I agree with everything that was just said. One thing that I will speak to from something I saw within my own family that I'm grateful for that I see missing in some of my clients was the oral tradition, as particularly with I come from a family where growing up, my elders would be sitting around in the living room having conversation while me and my cousins were getting our hair braided, you know, listening in as long as we weren't adding to it too much, and learning so much um, about their experience, particularly because they did grow up in the Jim Crow South, and our great grandmother was she was the first in her family to be able to get an education because her mother was enslaved and wasn't allowed to read or write. And so being able to have that experience definitely it it shaped me in a way where I was able to I felt I guess the word that comes to me was it felt majestic. It felt majestic to experience my elders in that way, and to hear the powerful storytelling in that way. And I think that that is something that is also being lost in some ways, being reclaimed in others, but being able to commune and hear the stories of all of who we are, so including, you know, who we were before these things as well, in community, particularly in younger and younger generations as well. And so that is one that I hope can continue to be reclaimed, because when it's not there, what I see from the clients that I've worked with who didn't have that is even more of a challenge finding themselves in the midst of all of this.
Finding themselves, finding yourself being the challenge. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Carolyn, let me read the question for you again too. What healing traditions were we forced to forget or perhaps never truly lost?
Well, when it comes to are you talking about our ancestors?
Yeah, so before colonization and enslavement, Black communities across the continent of Africa had rich traditions for maintaining emotional, spiritual, and communal well-being. And so with that, what healing traditions were we forced to forget or perhaps never truly lost?
Mm, that's a good question, and that's something that I am unfamiliar with, the healing practices of our ancestors. That's something that I need to study. So I'm interested to continue to hear more about it.
Well, even that response speaks
Yes,
to something being lost.
yes, yes.
And and then there's something that I learned as you know, I do somatic practitioner. I'm a somatic practitioner. I work with the body. And one of the things that I learned right away was like how, you know, the clapping and the rocking back and forth. And I remember seeing my grandma just rocking back and forth on the phone, talking and rocking back and forth. I never thought anything of it. And then, you know, just thinking about how dance and movement is such a part of us, yet maybe we just don't know. And that's how it's lost. That is right there for us. However, I'm gonna let's throw it to Minister Lavetta, and not have me answer the question.
Yes.
But
Um,
what healing traditions were we forced to forget or perhaps never truly lost?
Yeah, just like what you were saying, in Africa, most countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Guinea, these countries I'm familiar with. They, in the village choir, young young people, normally like the youths, they gather there to discuss about their socialization, their well-being, and what's happening in their homes, what they go through. And you see they begin to have a round circle, begin to clap their hands, and before you know it, the women come in and everybody gather around them and they begin to dance. And while they dance, that's how, they begin to heal. That's how you see, oh, I feel good today. And you see the way they do things, it's really rich. And that part as lost, because we feel if we do that anymore, we're not civilized, we're not modernized, but that is one rich way we used to heal. And now we don't see that anymore, because one thing that, colonization, I know you've not gone there, but one thing is stole from us is not just our lands, or the rich things that we have. It also stole, our culture and our language. Most of us want to speak English these days, and as you can see, you can hear me speaking, but I have, in my local dialects, I have Temne. I should be talking to you Temne right now, from Sierra Leone. But look at me speaking the English, because I feel it's what's best. This stole our language, our culture, and the things that we should be proud of, you know.
Wow. Yes.
Wait, did
Yes.
y'all notice how Lavetta said proud? She didn't just say proud of. She said proud of.
Yes.
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 Because I'm sitting here like you can go pay $2,000 to have somebody teach you how to rock back and forth and clap your hands so that you can deal with your nervous system. What?
See, you see that watch now you know why we like house music so much, and why we like the dance like that. See, I'm telling you that is shaking the pain. All right, that is reorganizing. And Sister Lavetta, Minister Lavetta, you take your shoes off and you do that on the ground in the earth. You dance and move, and now you are pounding with the earth, and you're getting the electricity and the magnetism from the earth coming up into your body,
Exactly.
girl. I'm telling you, you are now returning to the garden when you do that. And
Yeah.
guess where
When I
that
do
came from?
that, I feel myself importance. I feel I'm important. I'm worthy. I'm moving and I'm healing. Just yesterday, I put on a music and I was dancing and I posted it on social media. I said, I'm not ashamed. Whatever I'm going through, I'm healing from it. And when I dance, I just feel good.
Absolutely. I love the response. And Minister, we you touched on something, and we're gonna follow up with the next question. Colonization didn't only steal land and labor, just as you said, it also disrupted systems of knowledge. How has that affected the way many Black people understand healing today? Shantis.
I would say that it's taking our ancestral healing practices and made them negative, almost in a way that people have demonized it. Instead of refusing to take, Western medications, going back to drinking the roots, going back to eating, our healing practices. And I think one of the most important things for us too is spirituality. Um, Being brought over here has totally wiped away what we know and what actually works for us and our healing. So having that book thrown at us that told us to honor, the people who held us in captive rather than honoring our ancestors, which is to not be demonized by us. It's it's so deeper and so more in depth than what we know on the surface.
Very, very good point. Bernadette.
Mm. Absorbing all
Mhm.
of it. I'm absorbing all of it, and not to go back to that like, last question, but I'm just going to, because when I feel things, my body starts moving, and usually I'll make sound or I'll start moving my
Yes.
arms and things like that, and I think that is something too that was, and not that everyone is like that. I have a big personality like that. However, the little things that we do instinct, like with our instinct, that don't fit in what's deemed professional. Like when you're with people, don't do that, don't move like that. Even when you were talking about dance, Now we call it somatic, so we make it okay. However, I remember growing up and moving my hips as a little child and being, it was okay. That's how we've always danced. And when I started dancing like that in the West, how people would tell my parents, like, well, like, how is this little girl moving this way? What do you mean? Why are we over sexualizing how this person is moving, where it was just always the way we moved, right? Why are we seeing this through these lens? So, anyways, I digress with the question. However, I think I completely agree with Ashante, where and I see it everywhere in conversations in social media. Um, that was the best way to divide us. Spirituality, that is, I think. Language is another one. There's many. However, I see folks not being okay with, well, because I chose, maybe, I don't know, Christianity or whatever it is, well, your way of worshiping is the wrong one, right? But really, when you look at it, that's what we had before everything else came. And I think it's really, really sad. And I think even within ourselves, as soon as we are curious about studying, going back to roots, going back to spirituality in a different way that the church or every other institutions have taught us, as soon as we feel that desire, we almost want to suppress it because we've convinced ourselves that it is dangerous and it's not safe or it's demonic. I think it is important, even if we choose to honor God in a God that, maybe Christianity or any other religion or Islam has brought I think it is good for us to also educate ourselves in what was before that, what our ancestors were praying, the herbs that they were drinking, the ways that they were healing their bodies. Um, even even in my circle and within myself, and even just in the way I was raised, now I'm trying to reconnect with nature in a way that I was in a very I will use the word aggressive just because I'm drawn towards nature in an aggressive way, in the same way that when I was younger I was maybe taught to fear water and not go near water. Water is dangerous, forest is dangerous, all of these things. And now, as an older person, like as an adult, I'm trying to think about, so, like, what happened to us that we fear nature so much. We're like, especially those of us who are from the motherland, we're surrounded by only that water and forest, and so what happened to us? So I don't know if I answered the question because my mind is going different ways and directions, but I do think that, instead of seeing differences and judging in the ways people are finding what connects them the most with self and with God, I think we should look at what is it that we're looking for, and what is it about your individual healing journey that I can use in our collective healing journey. Um, and by looking at what we used to be or what we used to do as demonic, I think that is what makes the emancipation stop. That's what makes colonialism um, still live in cycles. It's because there's some things that have been ingrained, and then the perpetuator doesn't need to be there anymore. Now we're just sharing it, and we're just giving it to our children, repeating that, and then that idea will just keep going and going. I think there's a real power in being curious about what we used to do, and if it comes through you, you should really tap into it.
Hmm. There's a real power in being curious. What you said, Bernadette, reminds me of this, like, many, many years ago. This little boy came up to me, a little black boy. It was in Brooklyn, and I was at some kind of like street, something was happening, and he came up to me. And he was like, he was so little. He was like, "I'm bad." I was like, "Oh, you bad? What?" I was like, "What?" And it took me years to recognize that's how much he's been told he's bad.
Yes, yes.
He doesn't need anybody to tell him he's bad anymore. He knows he's bad to the extent that he's going to share it with us. Carolyn, let me read the question for you. Um, how has colonization affected the way many Black people understand healing today?
Huh.
Well, let's see. When it comes to, again, I'm still learning about decolonization, learning about the practices that we practiced back then. But the healing, well, our community really as a whole don't know healing. And I say that because everything has become so normal. As we said earlier, um, the even grieving, we don't know how to grieve. And so when I look at that question and I think about healing as a whole for our community, um, telling the truth. We don't know how to tell the truth. The grieving, we don't know how to grieve properly. Um, and that's part of why I am documenting my journey as I go to let us know that these things that we thought were okay are not okay. And by me being a peer, a Tennessee certified peer, and I hope I'm not going off on a tangent, I point to mental health professionals because I don't claim to know, I don't have the license for it, but I can tell our community through my lived experience how trauma truly affected me. And it's like, please go see a mental health professional. And because for years, the church was the center, but it left out the healing, the true healing part of it, the emotional side of it, the mental health side of it. So it's a lot that we don't know how to recognize healing, and that's something that I want us to do.
Absolutely. What you shared is so powerful. And I've never heard it said so explicitly that the church was the center, but it left out the emotional healing that was so important. That's so important. And anyway, we don't have enough time. We really don't have enough time, y'all. So I'm just gonna like pepper through some
Ethiopia,
questions
can I just add one little tiny thing,
very,
just
very quickly because we don't have much time.
very quickly? It's just in the even in the mental health professional that we're going to see, there's a real power in making sure that they're culturally informed and sensitive, because not everyone will sit necessarily with a therapist and explain their problem again, and like this, because it's reliving some trauma, and it's not for everyone. So I would say really go around and date, I'll say, like, date in the sense that make sure that it aligns the way they practice, that's the way you receive it. Otherwise it is not going to work. So having
Mhm.
it someone who's culturally responsive and accepts the way you also heal is absolutely important.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Very, very important. Very important. All right. So let's see here. Mm, I want to jump to healing is often described as deeply personal, yet many ancestral traditions viewed healing as communal. How do we balance individual healing with collective healing? Right? We know that both are important. How do we balance that? DeShantis.
For me, I'd say that the first step to communal healing is individual healing. It's learning the practices that you need within yourself to heal whatever trauma it is that you have endured, and then taking that back to your family, taking it back to the community, and seeing one, who is willing to acknowledge the trauma that they have even endured and what the practices that you are trying to bring around.
Thank you, Anastasia.
Yes, I think, I would say one of the things that I do try to do with my clients who are in that process of healing, because I do notice that like wanting to then protect, is encouraging them to use the use discernment and finding spaces where they can be their full selves, and that being able to have that as a healing experience in and of itself while they're also in the process of working through their individual trauma as well. And so I think that those two definitely go hand in hand.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna, Carolyn, you would like to answer?
I would.
Okay.
I wanted to say that healing, as we said, healing begins personally, but it never stays personal. One healed mother changes a family. One healed father changes generations. One emotionally healthy church changes the community, and one emotionally healthy leader changes an organization.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's like it's super important. You know, the change that we make individually is felt collectively. Just like whatever it is, you know that phrase, hurt people. So imagine what happens when you're not hurting and you're loving.
I love the
It's
fact of I apologize. I love the fact that I can say um, healed a healed person heals other people and be the change you want to see. And so it puts the responsibility back on me. It is personal, but it does, recurs with the people
absolutely,
that you encounter.
absolutely. Um, so because of the time, and we've had such a beautiful and rich discussion, I'm gonna like ask this question on our way out, and so for everyone to answer. Imagine your descendants 7 generations from now. 7 generations. Let's count that out. No, let's not. What is one practice they will inherit from you that you didn't inherit yourself? All right, I'll read that one more time. Imagine your descendants 7 generations from now. What is one practice they will inherit from you that you didn't inherit yourself? Mm. Dr. Marcus.
Wow, that's a powerful question. Uh, about the middle of my life career, about 40 or so, I wrote a book that was designed for my children, my great grandchildren, for that purpose to at that point deliver to them the full set of knowledge that I thought that I had excavated through my life, that but wouldn't come with the life you ordinarily get. So this is the extra stuff that you need. Quest for excellence is what I called it. And so there was that. So it's a lot of things, not just one thing. But if there was one thing that was going to survive, it's this idea that uh, you are inextricably connected to every other human being and every other living thing on the planet. And what happens to them is happening to you, and it's your business. And not only is it your business, is you are the business owner, author, and producer. So it's if it's gonna be, it's up to thee. It's like to take full control of the thing, from where you come from. There's gonna be plenty of bigger yous and thems out there in the world to straighten you out, to buffer that, but to hold your ground. That's what I hope they get, that ability to hold their ground, stand on the ground as a human being, like fully connected to all living things. Full stop.
Stand on your ground, fully connected. Lavetta?
Yes, I would just love to say that you just have to always see it in a way that is personal to you and, aggressive in order for you to have the healing that you want. Because take, for example, trauma, you want to heal from trauma, it's a personal decision that you have to make. If I have to point that back to, Proverbs 23:7, it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So how you think regularly is how you're going to become. And for me, that's very powerful because that's a thing that you will leave that, our ancestors perhaps before did not know, that a lot of things can come from us in the way that we think, and it can shape, our families, our communities, in the world that we live in.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Bernadette.
Okay. So something I like to say often is everything that I do in my life um, is in this, with this idea that I'm trying to be the best ancestor. Being the best ancestor is not only when you've crossed the veil, right? It's like everything leading to that. So we're already that, right? Um, in a few days, I'm going in silence for 10 days, and um, I've been sitting with emotions in my body, and I'm still sitting with them because I'm not sure which one it is. Is it stress? Is it fear? Is it I'm not sure. So I'm sitting with them to understand what they're trying to tell me. But one thing that I tell my children often, because they see me do these grand things, my son often said, like, you're never scared, and I say no, but I do it anyways. I bring fear with me most of the time. I hold hands with fear, or fear holds my hands often. Um, I doubt myself sometimes. There's things that, like, there's this duality between fear but doing it anyway. So if I can give a legacy to my children, their children, and even an example to my ancestors that are still living, is whatever we see, I do it with fear. So do it anyways. If you feel it in your soul and your heart and your spirit wants to do it anyways. Because then there will be no regrets, or there will be very, very few.
Thank you, Anastasia. Anastasia.
I would say making conscious choices, particularly as the co-creators of their reality. And I think that this neo-colonial world that we're in definitely rewards living on autopilot, and not really being aware of our mental appetite, what we're taking in. And so I think that that is a pattern that I have sought to break, and that I believe, 7 generations from now, that they'll be fully embodied, making conscious choices in all that they do.
Yes. Yes. Carolyn.
Um, Inherit emotional honesty instead of silence, faith instead of fear, healing instead of hiding, and the freedom to know they don't have to survive life the way our previous generations did. Every day, that's the legacy I'm trying to build.
Emotional honesty instead of silence.
Yes.
Thank you for that, DeShantis. Last but not least.
For me, I want the generations that come after me to be fully informed, not only of our history, but of our family history as well. I believe within our Black community, a lot of our elders hide things and shield things from us. So we grow up in a confused state. And I don't want that for generations that follow me. I want them to know where they come from, why uncle is that way, why the family connection, is obsolete, what happened. And I want them to be informed so that we don't continue to make those same mistakes.
Absolutely. I love bringing it home to the reality that telling the truth is it is important to heal. Because if I'm not telling the truth, I'm out here wilding, possibly.
Mhm.
Possibly, maybe, probably. Well, that is today's show. Thank you to all of the guests for your wisdom, everything that you've shared, for your time. This is Black Mental Health Matters. And today we've been talking about healing from generational trauma and Black ancestral practices. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.